Hi everyone, it's Kim. Thanks for joining me. As promised, I wanted to share the projects that I made in the classes I took during Creativation 2025, and the show took place earlier in April. And there's been a lot of changes. The last time I was there was 2020, and there's just been a lot of changes among the trade organizations that have combined the craft and hobby with the fine arts. So the trade show had a lot of different vendors, but I was glad that they kept the classes. And since I was there for paper crafting, I basically took the paper crafting classes. So I want to start with Spellbinders because we actually made cards. In some of the classes, we did not. A lot of the focus on the classes was mixed media, but we used the Better Press system and a new collection called Take Note. So let me just run through these and I'll show you the products. What was great was, I knew how to put a card together, so that was easy. We did most of these pieces, everything we letterpressed in class. Some of the pieces were already die cut for us because the classes are only an hour and a half long. So you have to get going. You can't dilly-dally and mess around. So let's start with this first one here, and I'll show you the Better Press plate we use for that. In the classes, you always get some of the product to make the cards, but not everything. But on this card, we start with this Better Press plate called College Ruled Notebook. And there's also like 4 little sentiments or words. You can use it with or without. So the one we used was just a note to say. This also says, dear friend, today, and to do. And then you can see that it has that torn edge. And that is from the torn paper edges die. So we've got our notebook torn edge, and then we just have the paper torn edge. So we'll take a look at a sample with that here in just a second. And then the other big piece of this was the push pin notes. So we've got the push pin and then like a sticky note that's kind of curled up on the end. The Happy Birthday, Let's Capture the Joy is a new Better Press sentiment set that's with this collection called Real Color Sentiments. I'll show you that in just a minute. In fact, all the sentiments that we used in class was from that Better Press plate, and those were done. So sometimes things are already cut out for us and sometimes they're not. And this flower was cut out for us, and that was from the Vivid Bloom set. So we Better pressed the back here, and then everything else was pretty much cut out, and all we had to do was assemble. So on this next card, this press plate here in the back is called Journal Grid, and the paper was colored for us. Someone had done that, but we actually Better pressed out the grid on our sheet. And in class, we share tools, like we shared the die cut machine and sometimes different products you share with whoever's sitting next to you. And then these 2 pieces of paper were cut, but then we die cut the edges, and that was using, again, the torn paper edges die. This was already done for us, and the heart was already cut out, so all we had to do was then assemble this card. But this gives us a look at some of the different Better Press background plates. And then the final card that we did was using the Memo Splatter press plate. So that's this one back here. This little piece of paper we did letterpress, and we used the College Ruled Notebook. So we don't have to just always make it like a sheet of paper. If you want to put it on something else, I know there's sticky notes like this, that would work as well. You could cut that out using that sticky note die here. There's that push pin again, and again a sentiment from the Real Color Sentiments. And then they had already cut these strips out for us, and we just had to adhere them to our card base. So a lot of times things are done. Again, there's a limited amount of time, and we get the instructions. So if we need to find out what a product was, or we kind of need a visual to put something together, if we don't get it done in class, we're able to do that. So let me show you what's in this collection. I think we used almost everything here, whether we actually letterpressed it or it was done for us. So here's the 3 background plates and the Real Color Sentiments. I'll hold that up so maybe you can read some of those. So there's some nice sentiments there. And then, let's see here. Here's our torn paper edges die, and then the push pin notes. And real color here we did not use. But these are all coming out. If they're not already at the store, they will be there very soon. One thing I did do, so when I got home, I like this letterpress plate, and I just found it interesting that we have the torn notebook edge. I know Tim's Vault set has a torn notebook edge, and I saw a couple other edges like this on the show floor. So that must be a big thing for this year. But let me show you just a couple things here. So I took this home and thought, okay, I'm going to make my own paper. So here's one again. Turn it this way. And I made a torn edge. So I can use this just like we did in our card, but maybe I don't want to tear the edge. I just want a piece of paper. Sometimes they ripped off from the top. And this little red line, you can move that wherever you want because there is a line, an alignment sheet. So I could put, and actually it would go this way because again, when we better press, whatever's on this side, the right side comes up on the left-hand side of the paper. And then here's where if you want to use the sentiments to line the sentiments up. So you have this little alignment sheet if you want to use that. So again, I could move my red line in farther if I didn't want it so far to the left. And then finally, I thought, well, I could make a grid out of this, and that's what I did. So this is a little bigger grid as compared to the Better Press plate. You can see this one's a lot smaller, but you know, if I wanted to do a grid, I could run it one way, and then I just picked it up, made sure I had it straight, so my lines were perpendicular to each other, and run it again the other way. And I would have to cut this down, but I could still use this for another purpose than just lines. So that is the first class that I took. Oh, one last little thing here. Going back to Tim. So he has in one of his vault collections this little clipboard, and I was like, oh, okay, I can use this letterpress plate and make my own paper. So basically what I did was make this, put a red line here, put a red line there, and then I could use Tim's die and die cut out my little sheets of paper here. And that's what I did on this one. I thought, well, some of that, you know, if you buy loose leaf paper, you can punch your own holes, and I could punch my own holes in the large sheet as well. So that's another way to have the paper. And then in one of Tim's die sets, he has this little clip. So I wouldn't need to glue that down. But if I wanted to say clip those together and attach them to the clipboard, I could. So again, mix and match, mix and match. You don't have to just use Spellbinders together. If you've got something pops into your head, I can use it this way, go for it. So that was the first class that I took. And then in the afternoon, I took a couple of Sizzix classes, and they were both mixed media. And the person who taught the first Sizzix class is Vic Hollins. Incredible instructor, very, very talented. And while you're doing all of this, they are demonstrating. But again, when the class is only an hour and a half, as much as you'd like to sit there and just watch her do the whole thing, you have to be doing it at the same time. So this was our project that we did using paint. And I will be honest with you, this was a huge challenge for me. The paint part was a huge challenge. So here is mine, and I think this was 8 by 8. It's like a hardboard. And we used paint, and we used these foam daubers. Let me pull a couple out here. You can see the color of the paint. Here's one that I used for a couple things. So we were all given these paint colors, and then the black and white, they put a big daub out on a craft mat between myself and my partner, and then we shared that. And then we did get some paintbrushes to use. Now, paint is not something that I use very often, except maybe on a gel plate, or if I'm just making some mixed media thing where you don't have to be blending, you're just putting it down there. So this again was a huge challenge. I did not quite get all of my little other plants stamped in here. I kind of skipped that and went down to this, and then there was one other little piece here I didn't get done. But I have to tell you, I was so kind of overwhelmed by the end of this class. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, but I was like, wow, a lot to learn about paint. So when I was done, I thought, I'm going to take this home and I'm going to recreate this in ink, because that is a medium that I am comfortable with. So that's what I did. Let me show you the products that we used for all of this. And if you get a chance, get on Sizzix, because we have 2 of the stencil and stamp sets, but there's others. And you can see Vic do this in person or on a video. She's absolutely incredible to watch. And of course, it's sped up. I don't know. You see these, but I don't know if you actually see her do those in person. There's one with a lady that she does with the town behind it, and I think she actually paints the people that are in there, the ladies, the women, whatever, and then she uses her stamps and stencils to decorate around it. I mean, it's just amazing to watch her. But these are the ones that we used. So I'm going to pull these out. I'm going to pull this one out. We're going to talk about this. We used paint on all of the stamps, and that was another thing that probably, I'll be honest, kind of gave me heartburn, because, I just don't have a comfort level using paint on stamps, but we're going to talk about that. So here's the stencils that come with this Western set, and let's see, this is called Western, this stamp set, so I'm going to leave that out. And then we used the clouds and this stencil for the stars. And again, these are all paint. So we dabbed paint through the stencil. And these are fairly open. You can see this is like a cloud stencil. And then here's the star stencil that we use. So these are nice and big. We did use and I'm not going to know what to call it. The positioner, which is like a stencil positioner, but you can also use it as a stamp positioner. It's called the Registration Press Tool. That's the official title here, and you can see the picture of it back here. So we use that to hold our stencils in place, and also to put our stamps like on the lid, put paint on the stamp and then press it down. So if we didn't get a good impression the first time with the paint, which I can guarantee you I didn't, I had to add more paint. And then at the very end, I just took my little paintbrush and kind of went in. I mean, I found that to be easier. So let me show you when I came home and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this with ink, because I love the stamp set. I think this is gorgeous. I love the layout of all of this, but I need to do it with a medium that I feel comfortable with. And my inks aren't as dark as the paint can get, but I could blend it much easier. So this is my version using ink. And then, yes, I had a comfort level. I could add all these other plants and finish it. And then these little kind of dab marks here, I did not do here, but I was able to do here. So this was much more comfortable for me to do, because I knew how to handle the ink more than I knew what to do with the paint. So if you see something and there's stencils and stamps, you can certainly recreate it in ink and not just paint. And then, you don't do much on 8x8s. That's a lot of ink to be blending. So I thought, I'm also going to do it if I want to use it for a card base. So this is for an A2 card base. Basically the same thing. I used all of the same products, but these two are ink as compared to the one with paint. So I was really happy that I could make some cards like this, because I think it's a beautiful picture, and I just need to do it in a medium that I feel more comfortable with. Now, I do want to share one little tip. So I kind of had heartburn using paint on these because I thought there's no way I'm going to get that paint off, especially sitting in a class. You could wipe the stencils off and get most of it off. You could wipe these off, but there was no way. And I had blue paint. I had this kind of blue aqua paint here, turquoise blue, all stuck in the little prickly parts of the stamp. In Adina Wakely class at Creativation, she brought up the fact that you can use Murphy's oil soap to clean up paintbrushes. And after I got home, there was a video from Brigitte Coopson, who teaches for Jelly Arts, and she showed how to use Murphy oil soap to clean your brayer and your stencils if they have dried on paint. So I thought, I'm going to try it on my stamps, and that's what I did. So I just put a little bit of this. I had a like say 5x5 piece of acetate. I just poured it on there, and I just set the painted side down into the Murphy oil soap, and I left it there. I did this like late afternoon, and before I went to bed, I saw them. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna scrub those up, and I took my little stamp cleaning toothbrush and just scrub those out, and it came out beautifully. And then I did clean it with just some mild hand soap, just in case, I don't know if this does anything to the stamps long term. I would definitely use it on red rubber stamps as well. But I was amazed. So if you have a paintbrush, and this is what Dina Wakely was sharing, if you have a paintbrush with dried on paint, just stick it into the Murphy's oil soap, pour this into a cup or something and stick your paintbrush in there, let it sit, and then come back to it, give it at least a couple hours, and you'll be able to get that paint out. If you Google Murphy oil soap and removing paint, tons of videos on there on how to use this. So it cleans your stamps. And now maybe I won't be so hesitant to use paint on stamps, but who knows? The second Sizzix class I took was from 49 and Market. So they have some new paper, some new dies out, and then we also got a pack of their rub-ons and their laser cut elements. So I want to show you this. The dies, again, do not have any pictures on them. We have 3 sets. So what I'm going to do is hold off on showing you these, and I'm not exactly sure when those are released. I think in the near future, but they won't mean much until you see them in a picture. So we're going to hold off on that. They did have all of this die cut for us. So this is a tag book that we made, and they did have all of this die cut for us. And she showed us the dies, their snap and swap dies, and then we just were kind of let loose to put stuff together because they felt like, most of us could follow a picture and do that. So I did some of this. I love this set. The paper is beautiful. We're going to flip through this. Very great. This is great for masculine cards. Absolutely great. So here were our instructions. I'm going to flip through the book. Now, when I started it, I was following the instructions. When I got home, I was sort of following the instructions. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to make it my own. But let me show you first this laser die cut, the packaging. I mean, this is packed with them. You'll see them better on the tag book. Some of them kind of fell out, but I'm just amazed. I mean, I'm going to have to get a couple packs of this because I don't want to just hoard it. I want to be able to use it because it would be great. And rub-ons is something that I really never use. That was obvious by how I was trying to do it in the class. And then someone suggested I cut them out. So that made it much easier to just stick with one rub-on. So, you learn something in all your classes. But these are the rub-ons. Great. So let's take a look at the tag book real quick. This will give you a better idea of the paper and those laser cut die cuts. And these are all the die cuts just kind of layered up, and you can see the paper. Maybe not hold this quite so close. And then flip it over. So the paper is double-sided. And there's some more of those die cuts. It's just so perfect for masculine cards. The motorcycle tools could be used for camping, everything very, very vintage. So this is one where I kind of went off on my own, and this was the backside of the paper. So things kind of didn't pop quite as much. You can definitely see that car though, and then the greenery behind it. This one I love. I love that truck and that water tower. Again, the paper is amazing. So you can get, the paper is 12 by 12, and I believe 8 by 8 is the other size. But you can see camping. Just incredible. And then this one has a pocket. So if you wanted to make, this was to make like photo mats and put photo mats. So let me show you this. So I did leave this open. So if I want to make a photo mat, stick it in there, I can do that. This is part of the rub-ons. I'm just kind of blowing through those rub-ons there. Here's some more rub-ons, but you can see all the die cuts. Here's one where, well, I was trying to do the die or the rub-ons up here, and this is where someone suggested that maybe I cut them out. So on these I added more when I got home. Here's a great look at what happens where it just keeps going if you don't cut them out. But hey, it worked out in the end. Another pocket with some more die cuts on it. And that's the last page. So the dies cut out these tags, and you can see some different edges on them. So we will use those again. Again, it will make more sense to you and definitely more sense to me when I have a picture to look at. And I thought I'm also going to just make a card, because I probably wouldn't make too many tag books, but how ideal this would be to make a card, a masculine card. And if somebody has the motorcycle or the fancy old vintage car, whatever they're into, how perfect, and have all these little tools, just so many different things. I did use just a couple of the rub-ons, Tall, Dark, and Handsome, and then these little gears are rub-ons. But I love this set, and I will definitely have to stock up on these die cuts. Again, I want to be able to use them and not just hoard them, because they are just too neat to look at. And the final thing that I want to share with you today is this glass board that we got from the Glassboard Studio, and I probably can't get the whole thing in here, but this is 10 by 8, and there used to be a lot of freebies given away, but not so much anymore. But the Glassboard Studio gave this to everyone that, came up to their booth. And I have seen these used online, and I am really impressed. This is for a magnetic board. So I have a couple glass mats, but they don't have the metal on the back here. And this is what makes them magnetic. And then Glassboard Studio has these super, super strong magnets. And I mean, you have no idea how much oof it takes to lift that up. So I have ordered from Glassboard Studio online some of the smaller magnets to use with this. And if I love this, I think I'm going to break down and get a larger glass mat. This is a 1/4 inch thick, and it's scratch resistant. It's not scratch proof. So if you do have something really like sharp, they said somebody's jewelry one time scratched it, but normally you can cut on this and it will not scratch the surface because it is so thick. And the board is heavy. So I was thrilled with this one, and I've been using this, and I'm waiting for my other magnets to come in, because I want to be able to, like, say, put a card base down and put the magnets on all 4 corners and be able to stencil it and not have it move around. So that will be the test that I need to give it. But that is, let's see, 3 of the classes that I took. Next time I will show you the Ranger classes that I took with their designers. Again, a lot of mixed media, but wonderful designers. You always learn something, even if it's maybe not something that you're really comfortable with doing, like with Vic Hollins, but I would not have traded that opportunity to be in her class. And then, of course, I love the Spellbinder classes and what we did in their class as well. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you again in a future video.